And welcome to Grandad's Reviews. This video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Just recently, I've basically moved away from digital cameras. I've sold about 90% of all my digital cameras and lenses, and I've gone back to film. I get more satisfaction from shooting with film. But I've not completely given up with digital cameras. And in my film cameras, I've got some Olympus OMs, I've got some Minoltas, some old rangefinders, some medium format. But I also picked up a camera I used to use for my wedding photography. And the reason I got it was because I've got some lenses. And on previous videos, you'd have seen that I use Canon lenses on my Fuji cameras. I'll put a link somewhere up here to that video. So I picked up this, the Canon EOS V, and I had a bit of a go with this in my wedding photography. I eventually went on to Minolta, but as I've got the Canon lenses, I thought, yeah, I'll get this, my Canon lenses. Then I thought, what about putting this up against a digital camera, and let's see what differences there really is. So I thought, well, got the Canon lenses, got an EOS V, what shall I get? I wanted something that is on a par usability wise compared to the EOS V, and not so much a simple camera but a more basic camera. So I picked up this Canon EOS V Mark III, and if we get both, as you can see, they're very similar. Both, that's an SLR, that's a DSLR. Top panels, all right, we haven't got a screen on the 5, but so I thought, let's do a shootout between these two. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put some Kodak Portra in this one. Not sure whether it's going to be 400 or 160 yet, we'll see. We'll use this lens, which is the 21-85. Simple reason being, this was around when film was around. So I'm not just picking the lens that's designed for digital cameras. This was originally designed for film cameras. So we'll use that on both to equal that out. We'll take 36 shots on the 5D using the same ISO of whatever portrait I put into the EOS V. I'll keep the apertures the same. And I'll probably shoot on aperture priority and just let the shutter sort itself out, because the weather could be changing between shots. And what I'm going to do is go for a walk, take 36 shots, reverse my walk, and take the same 36 shots with the EOS V, so I'm not swapping lenses over and over. And then we'll develop the film, put everything into Lightroom. So I'll scan them and put everything into Lightroom, and we'll have a little bit of a comparison between the two and just see what we get. Just for a bit of fun, and see how we go. Right, so been for the walk with the two cameras. Didn't take you long because it's the usual walk I do, and yeah, it's nothing exciting. What we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the images on the computer here. The images from the 5D are the raws straight out of the camera, dropped into Lightroom, and then just exported out as JPEG so I can put them in the editing software. The EOS V film I've developed myself in Cinestill C41. We've then scanned it with an Epson V700, created a TIFF, put that into Lightroom, and then exported it straight out as a JPEG. There's been no editing done on any of the images, whether the 5D ones or the EOS V ones. But just as they came basically out the camera or out the scanner in the case of the film. So whatever the scanner's done, you know, we've tried to keep it as clean as possible. We're obviously not going to zoom straight into 100% because, yeah, the digital file is a lot sharper and more detailed than the film, because the film it's analog, it's in a sense organic, so it's not as sharp as when you pixel peep, and that's not the idea of this. Just want to see what the two cameras produce at normal viewing distance, how you would say print it and have it in your hand, see what the difference is, see how the cameras cope with the light, the white balance, and obviously the white balance on the film is set in the film. It's Portra 160, so that's the white balance it's going to be. 5D Mark III, it was on auto white balance, so we'll see. All the images were taken at ISO 160, the Portra ISO, so the 5D was set at 160. The raw shot at f5.6 in aperture priority, so the camera just took care of the shutter speed and did its metering. And we'll have a look what we've got. So in this first image we can see straight away what we're saying about white balance. The white balance on the film on EOS 5 is a lot cooler to the 5D Mark III, but as in regard as exposure, I would say that the film's probably got it. There's a little bit more detail in the arch, and there's a bit more cloud detail as well. So in general, yeah, I think it's got it. In the next image, slightly different. The white balance between the two of them looks roughly the same. I would say, looking at this, I would say there's more detail in the film at this viewing distance, and the sky is not quite so blown out. But I think there's more detail in the film than there is the digital at this viewing distance. Obviously if we zoom in, it'll be totally different. Similar kind of story on the next image. White balance is a bit cooler on the Portra. I'd say it's more accurate because the church in the film is that grey in real life, whereas it's not quite so warm as on the 5D. The same again here, a bit of a purple greeny cast to the Portra. It's probably getting that bounced up from the grass, whereas the 5D has coped with that a bit better. But detail wise, at this viewing distance, there's nothing in it really. In this shot, again we've got this slight colour cast in the Portra, which is quite common in Portra. This is how it looks, and it's definitely warmer in the 5D. I think that's going to be the theme here. Definitely warmer in the 5D. Then here, if you look at the writing, we could zoom in on this one, I suppose. So if we zoom into 100%, and we look at the writing and the arrow. Yeah, if we look at the writing and the arrow, there's not a great deal in it. Definitely not. So we'll go on to the next one. A bit of a close-up here. And the EOS 5, I took that slightly different angle. But to be honest, there's more detail. So this is the raw straight out, so I've done no sharpening at all. So this is how the raw would come out, just converted to JPEG, whereas this is the scanned TIFF. White balance is very similar, still a little bit of a purple on that one. Go to the next one. We've got the flowers, and totally different. I'd say the colours are slightly more correct on the 5D than the EOS 5, but if you didn't have them side by side, I think they both would look good. And again, the 5's got some good detail. We've got a wider angle shot of the flowers. Same story. It's all about that white balance. Right, this is the whole building, and in this case there isn't much. There's not a big difference between the white balance. Again, it's a bit more warmer on the 5D, and I think there's, at this viewing distance, there's more detail on the 5, but we'll zoom into that one just for the sakes of it. Let's zoom right in, so let's zoom into 2 on there. And the detail's pretty even. The next one, I would say the EOS 5 is more true to life than the 5D. The shadows are thrown the white balance out on the 5D, and again the portrait looks sharper at this distance. This one here, the portrait's held the sky better. The 5D's basically blown it out. I could probably pull that back in if I did some editing. The white balance, it's a mixture of the two. There's a little bit of a green cast, but that's the colour of the paving slabs. They are like a grey colour, not as warm as this. Next one, here we've got the opposite. We've got a really blue greeny cast in the 5, but the 5D is more realistic. It's probably a little bit, probably a bit more detail in that one. Must be the lighting. Here, white balance is about similar. So I'd say the 5D's getting, it's because it's altering the white balance for all the conditions. Sometimes it's copying or equal to the portrait, and sometimes it's way off. But as a quick look, I say that the scan looks sharper. There was no sharpening added in the scan. That's exactly how it came out. Again, here we've got a bit warmer on the portrait than the 5D. That's dropped its white balance right down because obviously the shadows were there. And again, here the portrait's held the sky better. Film's got more latitude than the digital sensor. Again, the skies in the 5 is better. Colours, we've still got the cast on the portrait. We could alter that if we wanted to post-process it. And here, the colour in the church in the film is closer to reality than the 5D. That's a bit too warm. And again, the clouds and the skies really have been held back. In this shot here, very close. They're very similar. So I think what we're finding is, depending on the lighting conditions, will depend greatly on the result. In this shot, same story. Portrait's caught the sky a lot better, but the detail wise is very similar. In this shot, I would say the portrait's more like real life, a little bit of a cast, but the 5D is very warm. This one, again, the light's thrown both of them off. There's a lot more purple fringing, or halation even, from the portrait than the 5D. This was a daylight shot, light coming through a window, and I'd say the 5D is closer to the correct white balance as the 5. It's not bad. Sharpness wise, they're both very similar. That's another similar one here. Colours slightly, yeah, the 5D's got the colour better there. The sharpness again looks very similar. Same story there. So then I did a flash setup, just with a test card and a couple of toys. So this was with a flash, and as you can see, the portrait is warmer now. Obviously the flash is obviously a different colour. The 5D's got it more spot on, but at this distance, sharpness wise, nothing in it. Then did it without. This was just with constant light, then sharpness. Being portrait, I thought, well, better do a portrait. And didn't have any models except me. This was without flash. Big difference. You can still see that colour cast, but it's got more detail in the background. Same settings, same light coming through. And then I did it with flash. As you can see, very similar. Still slightly warm on the 5D. That's the set of images. Let's come to a conclusion. Right, so we've had a look at the results, and yeah, it's a bit of fun, isn't it, really? You can't really compare EOS 5 film camera to the 5D Mark III, really, because digital's always going to look sharper when you pixel peep. You pixel peep on the film, and you're going to see the grain and the organic analog image. But it's not a fair comparison. If I was going to do it properly, should have printed the EOS 5 negatives in the darkroom with an enlarger onto a large, let's say 16x20 or even a 10x8, and we should have done the same with the 5D. Should have printed it off on a printer and then looked at the prints. That would have been a better comparison, because at the end of the day, I've had to scan the negatives, which turns it digital, doesn't it? And the scanner, particularly my scanner, isn't the best in the world. I should have got a drum scan probably, and it would have seen a bit more sharpness. But at normal viewing distances, they're both good. Analog, film, image is just as good as the digital. And if you want to do a bit of editing, I've got it scanned in. We could have put it in Lightroom and done a bit of editing to get it the white balance the same, or a white balance to what you wanted. But I just wanted to show how the negative came straight out the scanner, and the same with the 5D Mark III, how that raw file came straight out the camera. And yeah, I'm impressed. There's nothing, neither one's better than the other. Both two different styles, and it's your choice whether you want to shoot on film or digital or both. And I like to shoot on both. I like the experience of using films, slowing you down, having to wait for the processed images to come back, or in my case, when I've developed them myself. And there's something, I don't know, a bit more satisfying than just shooting a digital image on a digital camera. But I just did this for a bit of fun. Channel's in a bit of a flux at the moment. The condition I've got, which is FND, functional neurological disorder, is getting worse, and I'm having a few more issues, especially with walking and with memory. So there's going to be probably fewer videos coming out. I'm hopefully at the moment aiming for one a month. So I've got 4 weeks to actually do it. So I've got more chance of getting out when I'm feeling better, or when I'm got more motivation, really. But I think that's the way the channel is going to go. There's probably going to be a bit more film stuff, because I'm doing more film, because it makes me think a bit harder, and it gives me a process to carry out rather than just taking a digital image straight in the computer. I've got a few more things to think about, and that helps. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. It helps the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Till next time, see you later.